Well, hello everyone. I want to thank you so much for joining us on today's webinar on practical strategies to help your mental health this holiday season. We're going to be joined by Serena Goldsmith, and Serena is a licensed clinical social worker and practicing psychotherapist who lives in San Diego, California. And in addition to her years of professional experience providing individual and group therapy and crisis intervention to clients with bipolar disorders and other mental health diagnoses, Serena has over 30 years of lived experience with bipolar 1 disorder herself. And as a mental health recovery educator and advocate, she is passionate about sharing knowledge gained from her own recovery journey, as well as from her work with clients, in order to provide hope and practical recovery tools to others. And today, Serena will be discussing a wide variety of topics, and several of those themes will be tips to manage sadness, helpful routines, and navigating family gatherings. I do want to let everyone know that there will be a 15-minute question and answer session at the end of today's webinar, and you can type your questions at any time throughout the presentation in the question and A box. And with all that being said, Serena, I'm going to let you start. I'm so excited for this.
Thank you, Jake. And thank you, International Bipolar Foundation, for hosting this webinar. I'm really excited to be here too with all of you today to share some of the wellness strategies and tips that I've learned, used, and taught over the years to optimize our wellness this time of year and our enjoyment of the holiday season. Many of these strategies can be helpful at any time of the year and for anyone, whether you have a mental health diagnosis or not. However, not all of them will apply to everyone. So I encourage you to think of this presentation as a buffet and to just take from it what you feel drawn to, what looks appetizing. And my hope is that there's at least one thing that you can take away from this webinar that is beneficial to you and to your life. So, see why my slides are not progressing here.
And there we go.
Okay. So I believe in a holistic approach to wellness. And in our society, we tend to divide ourselves up into parts. And for example, I see a psychiatrist for bipolar disorder. I see a gastroenterologist for Crohn's disease. Even though my gut health and my brain health, my mental health, they very much affect each other. But I'm not saying that I wouldn't want to see specialists for these conditions, because there's so much to know about each of those parts of ourselves. And I wouldn't want my psychiatrist to operate on my intestine or vice versa. However, we are whole beings with all of our parts interconnected and affecting one another. So our physical health affects our emotional health, our mental health affects our physical health, our spiritual health affects all of those, our life circumstances, our connections with others, all of those things interconnect, interrelate. So the good news about that is any area that we choose to focus on and improve will benefit all the other areas of our lives. So this is why many of these strategies I will be discussing overlap and interrelate. And I do want to share a caveat. I don't want these ideas and suggestions to feel overwhelming or stressful, because that would just be counterproductive to my aim here. Adding them into your life, I don't want that to feel overwhelming. So if you only implement just one new thing into your life and it's helpful, then that's a success. So the 6 strategies I'm going to be focusing on today are setting your intentions and planning ahead, maintaining a routine and healthy habits, managing and reducing stress and anxiety, managing sadness and grief this time of year, dealing with family gatherings and other interpersonal relationships, and self-regulating mood. And as Jake mentioned, there will be time for questions at the end. Okay, so the first one of setting your intentions and planning ahead. So I feel like it's important to think about first, what do you love about this time of year? What is most important to you? What is most meaningful to you? What are the things that you really want to participate in or experience? And then we want to prioritize those things and create a plan and a schedule that maximizes your ability to engage in those things. For some people, it's the spiritual or religious aspects of the season. Some people connecting more with community, spending time with family, experiencing other cultural celebrations or religious practices. If you have a paper and pen handy right now, you might want to jot down some of the things that are important to you that you do want to experience in the next several weeks. For some people, it's being able to give to others and volunteer their time and their expertise, singing holiday songs. Some of the other things I've thought of are the scents and the tastes of the season. They can be unique, like, pumpkin everything or whatever is culturally appropriate or relevant. The holiday lights, I love seeing the lights and the decorations on the houses. And for some people, it's just having time off work, reflecting on their accomplishments and goals, or accomplishments maybe over the last year and goals that you want to set for the new year. Because this time of year, there is more darkness, the days are shorter. So there can be that symbolism of looking for the light in the darkness. And I think that's reflected in a lot of different traditions of this time of year. Where do we find that light or that hope or that meaning amidst what feels like darkness? So creating a to-do list is something that I've really utilized a lot. It's helped me to stay organized, to stay focused, to be able to prioritize my priorities and not just get lost in less important things. And a daily schedule as well, especially on the busier days for you, can be helpful to really plan out those days so you're able to, handle whatever things and tasks you want to get done. So I would also say try to focus on just one thing at a time and finish that before moving on to your next task. That can feel less overwhelming, I think. And for times when I've been kind of hypomanic, or, when I get excited and it's seeing friends I hadn't seen or family I hadn't seen in a while, I can get scattered and try to do too many things at the same time. So I have to remind myself, just stick to this thing, finish it, go on to the next thing. So if you're going food shopping or gift shopping or baking or spending time with friends or doing activities, think about what days and times are going to be best for that, what's going to work best for you. Plan your menu out before food shopping. Having a list can be important to save time and not feel scattered. And ask people for help. Like if you're hosting a party or doing something, an event, ask people that you can count on to help you with meal preparations, for cleaning. And keep in mind, it doesn't have to be perfect. So it's more about, the experience than everything being perfect. Okay, what else did I put on here? Trying not to overschedule yourself with activities or commitments, and the importance of setting boundaries and limits. And I'm going to talk more about boundaries in a few minutes. It's really also important to schedule time in for your self-care and having alone time to recharge. I know some of us with mood disorders, a lot of sensory stimulation can be overwhelming. And so having that quiet time and alone time is really important. And writing down your wellness tools. So that's something I've taken from the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, which I will talk about a little later in the talk. And wellness tools are just the things that help you, the things that make you feel good, the things that prevent you from going down not a good path, things that are comforting, things that are uplifting. And so schedule those in. Try to spend time in nature. That can be really helpful to our mood. I know sometimes when I feel busy, I'll just go outside and sit in the sun for 5 minutes. And that really helps me kind of recenter and remind myself what's important right now. And sunlight, I know this time of year, most of us have less sunlight than we do at other times of the year, and that can really affect mood. There is seasonal affective disorder that affects a lot of people, or people with bipolar tend to have more depression in the wintertime and more mania in the spring and summertime. So the light definitely affects mood. And light box therapy is something that some people use when they are dealing with depression due to lack of light, or contributing to depression because of that. So I would just say be careful. I know when I've used light boxes in the past, it has induced mania for me. So you want to use it cautiously. But if this is a time of year when you struggle with depression, you can do some research on light boxes and just use 10 minutes a day or 15 minutes a day. It's like getting sunlight. And these are just some examples of wellness tools that I've used and that are common. There's so many that are unique to each person. So staying hydrated is important, drinking enough water. Sometimes we forget to do that. So if you have a way to keep track, if you have a water bottle or something that okay, if I drank 2 of these, then I'm good. Or just let you peruse the list and get ideas. Some of these are things you may already do. Arts and crafts are fun this time of year, making gingerbread houses, or making, if you know how to crochet, or making gifts for friends and family. Massages can be really nice and really good for de-stressing. Positive self-talk and affirmations. It's important what we tell ourselves. And often we're telling ourselves negative things instead of positive things. So kind of being mindful of, those messages you're telling yourself, like, oh, I'm never going to get this done, or, oh, this is too much for me, or I'm so stressed, I'm not going to have a good time. So change those to, I'm doing the best I can. Everything's okay. Things are going to be wonderful. This dinner is going to go really well. And I love animals. Animals can be very therapeutic. If you have a pet or pets, or if you know someone who does, kind of hanging out with them can be definite wellness tool. They can be very calming and help reduce anxiety. And so feel free to add as many things, gardening, or there's so many things, that helps them. So think about what those are for you. See if there's anything else I wanted to say. I think we're good to go on to the next one. So boundaries. Sometimes there's some confusion about what boundaries are or what that means. And there's a lot of different types of boundaries. So a general definition is the limits and rules we set for ourselves within relationships. So the appropriateness depends on the setting and also culture. In some cultures, like, people need a lot of personal space. In other cultures, it's a lot smaller. So if you look at that highlighter she's drawing around herself, it could be a much bigger circle in other countries. And healthy boundaries can involve being able to say no to others when you want to, but also being comfortable opening yourself up to intimacy and close relationships. So the boundaries that are not considered as healthy are rigid and porous. And again, it really depends on the setting and the situation as far as which fit in those categories. But generally speaking, rigid boundaries are when people keep others at a distance, whether that's emotionally, physically, even if they want more closeness, they're not comfortable with that. And porous boundaries tend to get when people get too involved with others. So as an example, with me, with mania, I would tend to have much more porous boundaries, because I would feel like there weren't really boundaries. Like, I was one with everything. So if I was in someone's space, I wouldn't feel that was anything wrong with that, although they usually did. And in periods of depression, I would be more at a distance, more withdrawn socially. So that's also something to keep in mind, like where you are with your mood and what you want your boundaries to be. And there's many types of boundaries. Some people add in other ones than what I put there: physical, intellectual, emotional, sexual, material, and time. So some that might apply during this time of year would be time boundaries. So you want to think about how you use your time and that you're setting aside time for each facet of your life, the things that are important to you. And if there's other people demanding your time, then you might need to set a boundary and say, I need this time for myself, for example. Material boundaries are money and possessions. So setting limits on what you will share and with whom. So that could relate to gift giving this time of year, maybe thinking about, how much do I want to spend and what kind of gifts? And maybe we don't give material gifts, but we do other things. Emotional boundaries are about our feelings and thinking about when to share and when not to share personal information. Intellectual boundaries refer to respecting others' ideas and having an awareness of what's appropriate discussion and maybe what isn't. For example, at a family dinner, if things tend to go in a direction that might lead to people being upset, then we might want to help steer it in a different direction. And that could be an example of an intellectual boundary. So one thing I thought about for time boundary, maybe I have it on this slide. Yeah, setting, this is my way, 10 steps to set healthy boundaries. So number one is clearly identifying your boundary. So let's say I'm going to a dinner party and I really need to leave at 8:30 p.m. so I can stick to my bedtime by the time I get home and I wind down and I take my meds. And so I know that about myself, that that's important. So that would be the clearly identifying it and understanding why I need it, why it's important for me. Being straightforward. You don't have to apologize or give long explanations. You can just tell the host, what, I have to leave at this time. It's, for my health, or you don't have to say that. Use a calm and polite tone. Start with tighter boundaries and then loosen them if appropriate. So maybe I could say, I really want to leave at 8, and then if it goes a little longer, it's okay. Address boundary violations early. So if the host is saying, but we're not going to do this until 9, so can't you stay until 9? Just make it clear, I really can't. Is there a way we could do that earlier? Don't make it personal. So it's not about them, it's about you. Use a support system if you need to, and trust your intuition. So if you know that this is something good for you and important for you, then it's a boundary that's important to set. Oh, it doesn't forward when I have the tab there. I'm learning how this works. Okay. So we got through the first strategy. Number 2, the importance of maintaining routine and healthy habits. So sleep-wake cycle is especially important for people with bipolar and other mood disorders, and regulating that. So sticking to a consistent bedtime and wake-up time, I know has been really important for me in managing my mood and staying well. Having a bedtime routine, you likely have one, so continuing that during this time of year is important. Having enough time to wind down, especially if you're doing more activities in the evening, then you want to plan in that time where you can wind down and get ready for bed. And blue light can definitely affect us, which can come from electronic devices, phones, computers, tablets. So there are filters that we can get for those devices that take the blue light out, which is helpful. Basically, our brains interpret blue light the same as sunlight. So it's a trigger for us to be awake rather than asleep. Also, if you're traveling, plan ahead about sleep. If you're going to be in a different time zone, maybe ask your doctor what's the best thing to do to reset your body clock. One thing that can help increase melatonin naturally in our body is by getting sunlight in our eyes first thing in the morning, not staring at the sun, but also not wearing glasses or contacts that can block the UVA and UVB rays, because that does increase the production of melatonin, which helps regulate our sleep-wake cycle. So in addition to the possibility of taking a melatonin supplement, but definitely check with your healthcare providers on that. There's ways we can naturally increase that melatonin in our system. And then there's also foods that do that, such as tart cherries and other foods that you can look up. So if you are in a different time zone, then making a point to get up when at first light, or it doesn't have to be when the sun rises, but getting yourself some sunlight through your eyes can help reset, get you used to that new time. So healthy eating, that's important for a lot of reasons, and it can be a challenge this time of year when we have all these different food temptations and desserts and heavy meals. And so one thing I do, especially having Crohn's disease, I've had to really learn how to prioritize my health over peer pressure, so to speak, like being around people, oh, you got to try this or that. But I know myself, I know, what foods are best for me. So sometimes I'll just eat a healthy snack, maybe some raw vegetables or something with fiber before I go to the party. So then I'm not starving and tempted to eat things that I know are not going to be good for me. And we can also, pay attention to portions. So it doesn't mean you don't want to try the desserts, but maybe just a couple bites instead of a big giant piece of cake or pie. And minimizing or avoiding alcohol can be important for a lot of reasons. Alcohol is a depressant, so it can contribute to depression. It often, if we're taking medications, it often doesn't mix well, and it can be dangerous mixing it with medications. And I'll say more about that when I talk more specifically about eating disorders. Another tip that I've done is kind of looking for the fruits and veggies, if there's salads, like filling my plate with those things first, and then adding on the heavier things so there's less room on the plate for those. Okay. So if you struggle with an eating disorder, you're not alone. A lot of people do, more people than people realize. And I have seen statistics that say it affects 9% of the US population, and it affects women more than men. Or I should say there's many types of eating disorders. So if you are being treated for an eating disorder, which also is more prevalent among mood disorders, bipolar disorder to co-occur with eating disorders, for reasons such as, when we have depressive symptoms, manic symptoms, that affects our appetite, that affects our routine, it can affect our self-esteem, and all of those things are factors with eating disorders. So if you have a care team that you're working with, maybe schedule extra check-ins with them, whether it's your psychiatrist, therapist, nutritionist, other types of providers. So you have that extra support. Again, having a plan in place ahead of time can be really helpful. Maybe reduce the number of events you're going to. Find someone who can be your support person to help you with meals and help you stick to your plan. Stick to your regular meal plan as much as possible. So maybe those other tips that I mentioned previously could help as well. Knowing, how much you want to eat and what types of foods, eating those first. Again, boundaries are important. So it might be, telling family or friends ahead of time to avoid diet-related conversations around you, or commenting on your appearance or your weight, any other triggers that might be distressing, letting them know or asking that they be thoughtful around that. Sometimes bringing your own food that you can eat. If it's, you can talk to the host. I do that a lot. I will bring meals that I know are safe for me, that are gluten-free and plant-based, and often a lot of people really like those foods. Staying focused on the meaning rather than the meals and the food. So you can focus on other holiday activities that you enjoy, like playing games or watching family favorite movies. or going for a walk to see the lights and the decorations, rather than having such a big focus on the food. And being compassionate towards yourself is really important. It's important for everyone, if you're struggling with an eating disorder, especially. So you want to use that positive self-talk and tell yourself all the good things that you're doing, and try to avoid perfectionism and unrealistic expectations. So, it's okay if you eat something that isn't on your plan. You'll say, it's good to forgive yourself and acknowledge that you're doing your best. And then again, drugs and alcohol can be really serious triggers for someone with an eating disorder, as they can cause increased symptoms of depression and anxiety. They can change your appetite and your eating. They, can affect your ability, your willpower, or your being able to think clearly about what's best to do. And one fun thing could be, instead of cocktails with alcohol, having a mocktail, a holiday mocktail, maybe bringing your own, or making them there. And there's so many cool holiday mocktail recipes. I was just looking at those yesterday. So that could be something fun that you could share with others. They might like kind of cutting out the alcohol too. Okay. So the brain-gut connection is a really important thing. And I learned that 30 some years ago when I was diagnosed with bipolar and Crohn's disease at the same time. Our gut health really affects our mental health and our brain health. And it is true that people with bipolar have an increased frequency of GI conditions, including inflammatory bowel disease, which is Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis. And then there's irritable bowel syndrome and celiac disease. And there's research that is looking into why that is, but, there could be a lot of reasons. The medications we take could affect our gut microbiome. Our gut, if it's, if we have genetic predispositions like me, if the gut is off, then it definitely changes our neurotransmitters, as we manufacture 90% of our serotonin in our gut, for example. There's more and more research now showing that connection between chronic inflammation and mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, mania. So we want to do everything we can to reduce chronic inflammation in our body. And diet is one way we can do that. It's probably the most important way. And that's a little picture of different foods that are good for gut health. So you can look at those and think about how much you eat and whether you want to add in any. And for me, I know when I'm adding in foods that I don't eat often, I do that slowly and gradually, because it can be, a little difficult at first when you're getting used to a new food, or having more fiber in general, for example. And again, like stomach distress can be the cause of anxiety, stress, or depression, and anxiety, stress, or depression can be the cause of stomach and intestinal distress. So it really can go both ways. So the more that we take care of our gut health, the better we'll feel overall and mood-wise. And I really like to eat fermented foods. Again, if that's something you're not used to eating, I would start slow and gradually add. But I used to take a probiotic every day, a supplement, and then I just started eating the foods instead. So my favorites are like coconut milk yogurt, kombucha, kimchi, tempeh, miso. So I would also say avoid processed foods as much as you can, fried foods, high sugar, fat foods like desserts, limit animal products, because all those things affect the level of inflammation in our body. It's good. It can be very helpful to consult with a registered dietitian or a nutritionist as well for customizing it to you. I've worked with a nutritionist who's been very helpful for me. Okay, so more on the healthy habits. Exercise. I know everybody talks about exercise. A lot of people don't like that word because it makes them feel bad about themselves that they're not doing it. So sometimes I just like to say moving your body, physical activity, really movement. Any kind of movement is good. For example, right now I'm at a stand-up desk and I'm standing instead of sitting, and even that can make a big difference. Walking for a few minutes every hour can make a big difference. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes or an hour that you dedicate only to exercise. And also I would say, so engaging in exercise you enjoy is important, because then you'll do it more. If you don't enjoy it, you're not going to want to do it. And if you are doing it, you might resent it. So having someone you can work out with, you can walk with or bike with or whatever, can be really helpful for accountability and make it more fun and social. If you already have an exercise routine, then try to stick to it during the holidays as much as you can, just like you would stick to your bedtime and your healthy eating. And be mindful of the types of exercise that can contribute to mood and balance. So for example, for me, in years and years ago, when I really liked feeling the manic feelings and I would want to increase them, I would do more intensive or cardio workouts, like running, and it would fuel the mania. So if you are feeling the more of the high side, I would stick to things that are more grounding and calming, like yoga, swimming, walking, tai chi. If you're feeling more depressed, more sad, then maybe doing those more cardio workouts. And then some tips specifically for the holiday time is, if you're doing holiday shopping, then walk a few quick laps around the shopping center before you go into any stores. Parking farther away and walking briskly to your destination. So, skip the search for a close parking spot, and that might save you time if you're not continuing to go around and around trying to find a close spot. If you park far away, you'll find a spot right away, and then you'll get to walk. Taking the stairs can be a great opportunity, whether it's in a parking garage or office or a shopping center, or if it's too many stairs, maybe take the elevator partway and the stairs the rest of the way. Just look for those little opportunities where you can move your body. Maybe suggest a group walk with friends and family. Let's say you've just had a meal and you want to go for a stroll outside. You can turn it into something fun, like a scavenger hunt or a group game in your yard or local park. And if it's cold, which it might be for a lot of people, can bundle up and take a walk instead of driving to see holiday lights and decorations. So those are a few ideas for exercise or movement. And if you can see this little picture, the amazing mental and brain health benefits of exercise. It says reduces depression, stress, and anxiety, protects brain health, manages pain, helps you sleep better, improves cognitive function, and it boosts confidence and self-esteem. Okay, managing and reducing stress and anxiety. So everybody deals with stress, everybody deals with anxiety. Some of us deal with more of it than others, and this time of year can be stressful. So one source of stress for a lot of people is financial stress. And, sticking to a budget can be a helpful way to manage that. Making homemade gifts instead of buying them can be even more appreciated and a lot less expensive, or shopping online and getting free shipping, like I have Amazon Prime, which is dangerous, but the free shipping can add up. Maybe sending it directly to your loved one instead of, packing it yourself and spending the cost to ship it. And if there are things causing you stress that you do have control over, then do what you can to reduce the source of your stress. And the things that you don't have control over, then we work on, the managing part. So anxiety, the definition, or one definition that's pretty general, is the fear of something bad happening in the future. So if we practice mindfulness, which means we're staying in the present and we're less focused on anything bad that can happen in the future. So one definition of mindfulness is a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and physical sensations. So there's many different mindfulness techniques, and there's many different apps that help people practice mindfulness. It's good to remember to breathe deeply rather than quickly and shallowly. And I teach the 4-7-8 relaxing breath technique. It's one of my favorite breathing techniques for anxiety and for inducing the relaxation state instead of being in fight or flight mode, which we are often in much more than we should be. And Dr. Andrew Weil, he's an MD, alternative, holistic, integrative, I guess I should say. He combines Western medicine with alternative approaches, and he brought that technique from the East. It's like a yogic way of breathing, and I'll just demonstrate it quickly. So the first step is to put the tip of your tongue on the roof of your mouth, right behind your front teeth, and to try to leave it there through the 4 breaths that you do. And first, you're going to breathe out all of your air through your mouth, like you're breathing out through a straw forcefully and making a whoosh sound. So like this. And you close your mouth, breathe in through your nose for a count of 4. Hold your breath for a count of 7. And exhale the same way through your mouth for a count of 8. And you can count at whatever rate, as long as it's the same rate for 4, 7, and 8. And as you practice it over time, you want to try to count more slowly. And if you practice this at least a couple times a day, every day, in a couple months, you'll notice a difference in your ability to manage anxiety, and that your body is learning how to go from fight or flight straight into relaxation with a lot less practice or effort. So use it when you don't need it, so that when you do need it, you have the muscle memory for it. And if you go on YouTube, you can find Dr. Andrew Weil demonstrating it. You can practice it with him. You could just search for Dr. Weil 4-7-8 and it will come up. And some other ways to cultivate present moment awareness is the 5-4-3-2-1 grounding technique. And I use this with a lot of my clients. I use it with myself. If I start going off into the past or the future, and just use my 5 senses to bring myself back to this moment. So that's the purpose of that technique. So you would name 5 things that you can see around you. Try to notice details that you wouldn't maybe normally notice. 4 things you can feel or touch. So maybe you feel your feet on the ground. Maybe you can touch the fabric of your clothing, hold something in your hand. 3 things you can hear. Maybe things you don't normally pay attention to, like the clock ticking or my air purifier. 2 things you can smell or taste. And 1 thing you're grateful for or you like about yourself. That's what I do. So that can be a simple technique that brings you quickly back to the present moment. And using our 5 senses can be an effective way to do that. Okay. So caffeine is something that a lot of people don't think about that could be fueling or contributing to their anxiety. So if you are drinking a lot of caffeine, whether it's coffee, energy drinks, even tea, try reducing it and seeing if it has an impact on your anxiety. It might also help your sleep as well. And I generally say if someone wants to have caffeine, have it before noon. Because even early in the afternoon can affect your sleep. But everyone is different when it comes to how caffeine affects them. Going back to the planning and scheduling, it's good to schedule in enough time in your day so you don't feel like you're rushing, because that can contribute to anxiety and stress. Physical activity, we store anxiety in our muscles and our tissues. So the progressive muscle relaxation is a way to release that. And basically you can look, do a search, you'll find a lot of people demonstrating it that you can practice with. Basically, it's tensing your muscles at groups at a time. So if you start with your feet, you would tense your feet, hold the tension, and then relax. And then you'd work your way up your body. And then you can tense your whole body, hold it for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, and then relax. shaking it off, like Taylor Swift's song, is helpful too. It's a quick way of imagining that you have your hands are wet, you want to dry them off, you just shake them. That can release what pent up, stress and anxiety. And affirming self-talk can be really helpful. In this moment, I am okay. I trust that I will continue to be okay in future moments. This will pass just like it has before. Or I'm grateful for this reminder of being alive. Sometimes when we feel anxiety, our heart beats faster. We're more aware that we're alive and we have a body. So we can be grateful for that, even though it's not a comfortable experience. And reaching out for support. That can be really important, whether it's friends, a support group, therapist, calling a warm line, going to supportive family members and saying, hey, I'm really feeling stressed, I'm really anxious, and just feeling like you're not alone. You have people who got your back. And I didn't want to read that quote that was on the previous slide. So Thich Nhat Hanh, this is a quote from him, and he was a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. He just passed away last year. He had a long life. He was a peace activist, an author, a poet, a teacher, and is known as the father of mindfulness. So his quote is, "The most precious gift we can offer anyone is our attention. When mindfulness embraces those we love, they will bloom like flowers." So I think that's something to keep in mind, that when we're really present with our loved ones, that's the greatest gift we can give. Children crave that, that being present with them. And so do adults, so do all of us. So I think to think about. Okay, what are we doing here? Managing sadness and grief. So there can be a lot of mixed emotions during the holiday season, and many reasons why people may feel sad. It could be the loss of who you used to be, maybe before you had symptoms of bipolar or anything else. The loss of what you used to be able to do. The pandemic took a lot of lives, and loved ones may be missing from holiday gatherings for the first time. And it's important to be open and honest with people you can trust, whether that's a therapist, a friend, family member. Acknowledge your feelings and know that it's okay and it's normal to feel what you're feeling. And it is normal to feel sad this time of year. None of us are happy all the time. And especially things can, become more poignant this time of year. So that social connection is important. And, if you're missing a loved one who's not here, who's passed, or maybe they're in a different part of the world and you can't see them, it can be really healing to honor their memory. Maybe they had a favorite holiday song or a favorite food or recipe. You could play that song or sing that song or make that recipe and send them love. That in itself can be very healing, just knowing that you're feeling that heart connection. And I like to talk about safety. That's important. If you are feeling more sad, or if you or someone is feeling unsafe, feeling suicidal, feeling like you might hurt yourself, please tell someone in your support system. If you need to, go to your local emergency department. Make sure you're not alone, or that person is not alone. You can call the 24/7 United States Suicide Crisis Lifeline, which is 988. It's just 3 numbers. Like the emergency number is 911, this is 988. Or you can text the crisis text line. Text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741. Great. Family gatherings and interpersonal relationships. So these can be sources of stress for a lot of people, source of sadness, source of frustration, irritability, all kinds of things. Sometimes we say our family, installed our buttons so they know exactly how to push them. So one example could be a problematic dinner conversation. If you can tell the conversation is headed in not a good direction, then politely and assertively steer it away from that controversial or triggering topic. You can do that by just introducing a different topic, or using I statements is important instead of blaming. Or when we say you, like, you made me feel this way, that really brings up defensiveness in the other person. So when we say I statements, it's much, it can lead to a much better interaction. So taking responsibility for your feelings. I feel this, I feel upset when this happened. I'm asking that maybe, you could do this instead. Assertive communication, again, that goes back to standing up for yourself in a respectful way, and setting healthy boundaries for yourself, and spending extra time with the people you love, support, and who uplift you. So maybe they're not your biological family, maybe they're more your chosen family. So sometimes it's good if you know you're going to be with family and it's a lot for you. Maybe make that exit plan, let someone know you have to leave at a certain time, or take care of you. Let's see if there's something else. Okay. So number 6 is self-regulating mood. And this brings back all the other things I've talked about. All those things factor into how to do this for ourselves. I've learned so many things that have helped me to stay well, maintain my health. That sense of self-awareness, knowing myself, knowing when I feel a little manicky or a little depressed, noticing those little signs that are unique to me, has been really important for regulating my mood. So, for example, if I start feeling really low energy, I have more negative thoughts, I don't want to be around people, then I know, okay, I got to do some things that bring me up. And if I start feeling frenzied or not being able to sleep very much, or, just trying to do too many things and be too social, then I'll use my grounding tools to bring me down. So that might be just sitting outside and grounding myself with my feet on the ground. It might be eating heavier foods, like more root vegetables instead of fruits. So there's a lot of things that I've learned that can bring me up and down on that little balance board she's on, depending on how I'm feeling. And it can be helpful to be open to feedback from people who know you well and who you trust. Because sometimes we're not always aware, but other people around us might say, oh, you're kind of talking faster than usual, or you're doing a lot more, or and instead of getting upset, try to use that information to help you stay well. It's really important to keep adhering to your treatment regimen and your health routine as closely as possible during this time of year. Schedule extra appointments with your psychiatrist or therapist if that will be helpful. Make sure you have enough medication if you take medication. If you're going to be traveling, make sure ahead of time you get your refills so you have enough until you get home. Plan for the things that will help your mental health and mood stability before your trip. And the wellness plan, I mentioned the Wellness Recovery Action Plan, or WRAP. That's a well-known version of a wellness plan. That's where I learned the term wellness tools and wellness toolbox. It's a wonderful class and books, and the Wellness Recovery Action Plan.com has a lot of different books on how to create your own customized wellness plan. So if you have that plan ahead of time and you share it with your support system, then they can help you stick to it if things start going in a not good direction. And to come full circle, reminding yourself of your intentions for the holidays. You can use that as motivation to do the things you need to do to maintain your mood stability, to maintain your overall health. So back to the intentions and really thinking about what's meaningful, what's important to you, what do you most want to experience. Maybe it's over the next month that there's a lot of opportunities to do a lot of things, but what are the top things that you really feel like you want to do? And if you didn't get to, you'd be disappointed. And some of the other things may not be as important and necessary to participate in. So thank you for listening. And I think we have some time for questions. So I'm excited to hear what your questions are and see if I can answer them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Serena. That was great. So at this point of today's webinar, we're going to be going into our question and answer session. So if you have any questions, please type them in the box. We're going to try to get to as many as we can today. And our first question is actually, someone wants to know is, how does water and staying hydrated help with bipolar disorder?
Well, it helps everyone. We're made up of 90-something% water, I think, our physical bodies. And especially with bipolar, some of us take medications that if we get dehydrated, that can be dangerous or cause, side effects. For example, lithium. When I used to take lithium, I needed to stay extra hydrated for that reason. So taking in enough water, when we eat more raw fruits and vegetables, those are high water content foods. So that's another way to help stay hydrated. And then just making sure, because sodas are not the same as water as far as hydration, and other types of drinks and juices can be, even if they're 100% juice, that can be a lot of sugar in our system without the fiber to slow it down, which can spike our blood sugar, which can lead to mood imbalance. So staying hydrated, that's how our body most properly functions. All its different functions, it needs water. All our cells, the repair of our cells, our brain function and health, all depend on having enough hydration.
Yeah, thank you. So our second question is it okay if you just want to be resting on the bed, even in the more cheerful moments?
Yeah, I think whatever you need is not just okay, but necessary. So if you need to rest, if you need that alone time, take that time, use your boundaries, use your assertiveness to say, I think I need some time to relax or rest, or maybe it's too much sensory overload. I experience that sometimes when I'm around big groups of people for a long time or a certain amount of time. So resting on the bed, that can help calm down our sensory overload and help us kind of reset and get ready for whatever's next. So I would say, yes, it's definitely okay.
Yeah, thank you. So our next question is going to be, as a caregiver, how can I best assist my loved one during the holidays?
Maybe ask what they would like as support. So sometimes as loved ones, the things we think will most support people aren't the things that actually are the most supportive. So talking to your loved one, saying, what would help you? How can I help you? Is there anything I can do that will make this easier? And if they're not sure how to answer that, then maybe just knowing them, your history with them, knowing, what has helped in the past and what hasn't. I think just trying to think of an example in my own life of, sometimes when loved ones would comment or be concerned about, oh, you seem kind of manic-y, or I wouldn't like that, because it's like, what? I'm not allowed to be happy. I'm just happy. I'm okay. So saying it that way was not helpful. But if they said, oh, how are you feeling? Are you, sticking to your routine or something, or can I help you in some way? Can I shop for you or help make some food for you or something? That's different. It feels more empowering and less like patronizing.
Exactly. I agree. That's a great answer. And then our next question is Is it possible for someone to come off medication and stay healthy?
I have known people who have. Personally, I've greatly reduced my medication and have stayed well. It's really unique to each person. Some people have never taken medications for bipolar and they've handled it or they've managed it in other ways. So I would definitely, if you are taking medication and you would like to change what you're taking, adjust your dose, take something different, or come off medication completely, definitely it's very, very important to work with your healthcare providers, psychiatrists, doctors, therapists, because that can be very destabilizing. You know, when our brains and our body are used to certain medication or medications that we're taking regularly, and then all of a sudden they get taken away, whether or not they're even helpful or therapeutic, the act of reducing them or taking them away can be very destabilizing to the brain, the balance of brain chemistry and just our whole body. So I would say, and maybe a lot of mental health professionals wouldn't agree with me that it's possible. I know it can be true that if you've been on medication and it's very effective, and then you go off of it and try to go back on it later, it might not be as effective, or it might not be effective at all. So that could be a risk. So it's kind of researching, learning as much as you can, talking to your healthcare providers and figuring out, what's best for you, weighing the risks, the pros and cons, before you make a decision around that.
Yeah, great. So our next question will be, what's a good way to apply all of this on a family trip? And this asker has a very large family. We're talking over 20 people. So there's a lot going on. How can they apply some of this to this vacation?
Okay. Well, I think it's that self-awareness and tuning into what you need. So if you need quiet time, find a way to get some quiet time, even if it's going off on a walk by yourself, or if you're at a hotel, going back to the room and resting. If you're staying with family, just expressing what you need. I think whatever tips resonate that feel like, oh, that could be a good idea, something that I could implement that would help me on this trip, then by all means, try it. And like I said, plan ahead, think about what could be a pitfall, what could be triggering, what could be difficult for you, and try to figure out strategies to manage that ahead of time, so it's not maybe catching you as off guard.
Hmm. Well, thank you for that. And with those questions being answered, I want to say a big thank you to everyone in attendance today. And if you would like to rewatch this webinar or share it with a friend or loved one, it can be found at ibpf.org and on our YouTube channel, International Bipolar Foundation. And I want to say a very big thank you to Serena for joining us today. And Serena, do you have any last comments you would like to share with our community?
I just want to say thank you to you, Jake, and to International Bipolar Foundation, because I think it's such a wonderful organization. The fact that it focuses on bipolar disorder is unique in the mental health arena. And just it provides so many wonderful resources to families, loved ones, people with lived experience with bipolar. If you look on the website, ibpf.org, you'll find so much information. You'll find so many archived talks and blogs and lectures. And so use that resource. And yeah, I'm very grateful that it exists.
No, Serena, thank you so much. And with all that being said, I wish everyone a lovely day today. And thanks again for joining. Take care, everyone.
Yeah.